Welcome to the Do Good X podcast, a sanctuary from the entrepreneurial grind. Hosts Kimberly Danielle and Stephen Lewis, advocates for impactful entrepreneurship, guide you on the path where purpose meets business. Join us to slow down, reconnect, and explore the challenges of under-resourced entrepreneurs, uncovering the unique journey of building businesses that make a difference. Now, your host.
Welcome to the Do Good X podcast. My name is Stephen Lewis, and I am a catalyst for positive change in communities and businesses. Now, for over 2 decades, I've inspired leaders and entrepreneurs to live and work on purpose with intention, faith, and with a commitment to their well-being. I am joined once again by my colleague and co-host, Kimberly Danielle.
Hello, everyone. I am Kimberly Danielle, and I am a coach, a community builder, and a communication strategist who comes from generations of faith-driven entrepreneurs and leaders who believe that our purpose should drive us to contribute to the common good. I look forward to this conversation that we will have today. Today, we have Rachel Wilson, and she brings over a decade of diverse global experience spanning multiple industries, many industries, food and beverage, automotive, tech, healthcare, music, fashion, and media. She is managing partner of the BFM Fund and orchestrated the fund's operational and governance processes. The BFM Fund, if you haven't heard of them, is a seed stage venture fund focused on Black and innovative entrepreneurs. She recently led the operations for Collab Capital, fund report oversighting. She recently led operations for Collab Capital, which is a diverse owned fund with an AUM of $50 million. Rachel's role encompassed investor relations, fund report oversight, impact metric strategy, as well as comprehensive governance responsibilities, including legal and HR management. Her commitment to fostering diversity and inclusion is in the venture capital landscape is also evident through her involvement as a board member of Black Women in Venture Capital, which is a nonprofit dedicated to supporting careers and access to capital networks for its 300 plus members. And she is also recognized as a NAIC Women in Alternatives Up Fellow and co-lead for Living Cities Inclusive Capital Council. I mentioned to you all, if you've been listening on our episodes previously, we had one with John Gary, who is a principal at Gary Elevator, and I said that we'd have several leaders from the investor field joining our podcast. So when Rachel and I recently connected through a mutual friend and colleague and chatted a bit, it was clear to me that she is not only an incredible human being and a fun person and someone I want to grab coffee with from Just Add Honey and walk down the Beltline with, but she has a lot of insight and wisdom to share, especially for those of you who are coming from a Black community, women community. She comes with a wealth of knowledge that can be helpful for your journey and resources that would be great for you to put in your toolkit. So I'm grateful that Rachel has taken the opportunity and time to join us. Thank you so much, Rachel.
Oh, thank you so much, Kimberly. Thank you so much, Stephen. I'm really honored and very blessed to be here today.
So I'm going to go ahead and get us started. Your work spans various industries that I named. I think I named probably about maybe like 7 at least. So what led you to the venture capital space, and what continues to drive your work in this particular space?
That's a really great question, Kimberly. One, thank you guys again for letting me be here and be able to talk to your audience about this. Capital access, entrepreneurship, bootstrapping, wealth generation are all things that really matter a lot to me, just because I grew up around it. And that's really what the center of everything really landed on in terms of how I got into the space, or why I was purposeful in trying to figure out ways to be involved in this space. My dad is a serial entrepreneur, a service disabled veteran. And ever since I could remember, he was always building a thing, starting a business, and trying to grow it. And a lot of times, bootstrapping it. And also, as he would call it, doing that through sticks and bricks is and not necessarily going through your regular means of trying to figure out how to get capital. It was everything has to be sales and revenue driven. So that was always my exposure to entrepreneurship, and also saw the need for, like, man, if there was capital available or resources with better terms available, he would probably be able to do more, work faster at what he was doing. And so that was really I would say, catalyst for why I really wanted to get into venture. It didn't happen for some time. I know a lot of people try to get into venture, and it is very much an apprenticeship type of space. And so you either got to know someone or start somewhere from like an analyst or intern, really, in order to get opportunities there. And so for me, it really just came about through building up my own skills in an operational perspective. So then that way I could parlay it into different types of industries, which is why I was involved in so many different places and different industries and segments. And that allowed me to get access to folks who were building firms, building funds, specifically investing into into Black startups.
Thank you.
Can you share with listeners who might be early in the entrepreneurial journey, what is a seed stage venture and what would make a business VC ready for the BFM Fund?
Yes. So that's a very loaded question, Stephen. And so I don't have time today to go through the education of all things VC, but I'm going to break it down to hopefully give some context before I say like how the BFM Fund looks at it. So when folks hear the word venture capital, it really is all about, do you have a business that has the ability to be innovative, has the ability to take over a particular market or be able to control a certain aspect of it, get some market share, and be able to exit in a certain time frame. So then that way all the folks that have put money into your business are able to get some type of return through a liquidity event. And when I say liquidity event, that essentially means a moment in time where your business is being sold, merged, purchased, um, going, taking a portion of whatever shares of equity that you have, and being able to get some return on that investment. And essentially, venture capital is a business in itself. It's people trying to find businesses that can flip themselves for a return of a minimum of 3x. And then there's a lot more that goes into that, but that's like at this very simplest level, how do venture capitalists find a company they can flip to get them a return of a certain amount so that they can pay themselves, and most importantly, pay their investors who believe that they can find amazing businesses to return capital to them. And so when you ask about the BFM Fund, we are in the asset class of private equity, and under private equity sits venture capital. What we invest in is seed stage companies up to Series A, so meaning companies that have gotten to a certain level of revenue growth, they've gotten a good amount of market share, and now they're in need of larger amount of dollars, large amount of resources that can help them to maximize even more of the market that they're going after, be able to get into larger contraction opportunities or gain more users, depending on what type of business they have or consumers, buyers. And so our company invests at seed to Series A. We need companies that have some level of traction, meaning there are customers that want to buy the things that they're selling. They see that there's an actual use case. The business is customer centric, so they're not just focused on just the product and getting, or just the business or the service having awareness. They really care about what their customers think, why they want to buy what they're selling, that they understand the nuances of how to get them to buy their product or service as well. And then additionally for us, we also care about what exit looks like. So in certain cases with some VC firms, they'll see a company and say, oh man, these founders are great. You know, we like what they're doing. They do have some traction, some movement, maybe some sales, a good amount of users. And so let's go ahead and give them some capital and see how it goes. Well, we do a lot more proactive work because, like I said at the beginning, the whole point of venture is to get you to have an exit so then that they can return capital to who? Themselves and their investors. So when you think about taking venture capital money, you have to keep that in mind, that is the VCs, the venture capitalists' end goal. And so for us, because we're investing specifically into Black founders that are looking for venture capital, we don't want all of them to fail. We want majority of them to have the ability to go through an exit. We don't want them to go through this process, get to a point of needing capital, can't raise that capital, and then we as a firm only focus on the few who seem to be able to return those dollars. Well, we want to do a lot of work in the beginning to allow for you to get to that exit point. It won't be everybody, but as much as we possibly can, have majority of the business's exit. And so what that means for us is we're working a lot with private equity firms, roll-up firms. We're working with a lot of folks who look to be strategics or purchase or buy, or even people who are looking to do entrepreneurship through acquisition. And so we're working with a lot of those firms to understand, would this company, if they meet certain parameters, be a good purchase for you in your portfolio later on? So then that way, majority of our companies can have that exit opportunity. They too may not be a unicorn, as we say in our industry. They may not be a unicorn, but at least they're being able to get to a point of having that exit, which creates wealth, which allows for them to maybe build a family office, be able to invest into other opportunities philanthropically or different asset classes. By having that exit, it just creates optionality, creates options for the founder, for their family, regardless if the family wants to take on the business or not. And then they can parlay that into building another new thing or selling another new thing, which does definitely happen a lot in the private equity space. So hopefully at a high level, Stephen, that answered your question.
You did a wonderful job. So let me ask you a follow-up question, which is to
Yes.
say, is there a floor or is there a profile of what seed stage ventures look like? Like, do they have a bare minimum X amount of revenue, X number of people on their team? Are they typically technology firms? Like, how would you answer that for our listeners? Because I think a lot of people hear kind of VC and you get into different series and it's like, okay, like, how do I know that I'm ready to actually do this? So do you have kind of a profile or a floor in terms of like people need to be generating X amount of dollars in revenue and so on as the other things that I've named?
Yes, and it can be a different answer depending on the VC you're talking to. So the playbook, I would say, currently, given the market that we're in, is that you do need to show that you have made some progress with your users and some level of revenue. I think in the past, maybe the years 3-4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago, pre-COVID, you can come in and say, I have an idea, I have a minimal valuable product, an MVP, something that shows like, hey, here's the product, here's what I'm selling. If you're doing like a SaaS business or an application of some sort, or if you are a food and beverage or a consumer product company, maybe you have the actual product, you've got the brand, the labeling, all together and all those things. But you haven't really gotten into market. There are people who are pre-seed who will invest into your company because they believe in your idea, or you might find angels that can come in and support that to get you to that next level so that you can start to get it into spaces where you can sell your product if you're a consumer, or be able to get more awareness so that you can get more users. And so I would say in this market, having some level of revenue helps. So that can be anywhere from, uh, a couple $100s to a couple thousands of dollars. And it's consistent. So it's not, you had January, some money, February, March, no money, April, got some up, but like month to month, there's some revenue being created and you're seeing an increase of that monthly revenue being generated time and time again. That shows traction, that shows growth, that shows that there is an interest in the market for what you are building. If you're starting to get pilot opportunities and things like that from any customers on an enterprise level, contracts and things like that, that is always really helpful. And then also having references that can be shared as well, whether that's other investors, angels, institutions, VCs and the like, whether that's customers, which I think more and more VCs, more and more investors, as they're doing diligence, want to be able to talk to some of your, high profile or larger customers as well. And then also showcasing that you do have a team. The team doesn't have to be incredibly large. It's more around the expertise of that team. And it could be the external team too. So your advisors, they may not necessarily sit in on your team as well. So you could have yourself, who may have knowledge of like the opportunity, how to sell it, or you could be the more technical founder who knows how to build it, but you don't know necessarily how to sell it. But then you have someone on your team who is the salesperson, who is the more CEO aspect of the team, or someone who's the more technical person. And then you want to have someone who can talk about the numbers, and whether that is yourself or someone on the team who can say like, this is the strategy that we have to go to market. Here's the strategy that we have in terms of capturing certain personas or groups of people. Here's the price points of what we're going after and why. And so really having a very good understanding of the type of business that you have is really key. That then helps the investor know that you know this better than them. You have all the experience and the team that can help you to go after the strategy that you put in play. And you're not saying that this is what is going to happen. You're basically saying, this is what we're doing, and here's how we're executing on that strategy. That doesn't always sit well with every investor. They may want more things than that, but at minimum, I would say if you have those things in line, making sure that you have some kind of revenue movement traction in terms of the sellability of the product or services that you're offering, the right type of team and pitch as well, then I think that you'll at least get the first foot in the door. And so that's a little bit of the playbook when you're going after venture capital dollars.
That's good. Thank you.
You've talked a bit about exit strategies. That was a bit of our conversation that we previously had before this podcast too, specifically for Black founders. And I will say out here when I'm having conversations with founders, even some investors talking about early stage founders, I would say like maybe 5% of the conversations that have emerged have been about exit strategies. So it hasn't come up a lot. So I am curious to hear for our listeners who are in the early stage, haven't even thought about exit strategy. Who should consider an exit strategy? When should they consider it? And what does a successful exit look like? Now, that might be a loaded question. It's really like a 3-part question, but.
So I would say that when you're building a business in general, you should always be thinking about what is, one, the end goal for me, whether that's for yourself, your family, and what does the legacy component look like? And the legacy component is that exit. And so it could be exit in terms of I plan to give this business to the next generation in my family. That could be I plan to sell off this company to someone or some company. And so I think you should always have those things in mind. I think a lot of times as entrepreneurs or people who are visionaries, you get so caught up in the passion that you may have for the product or the thing that you're building. And so you're not necessarily thinking about the end goal or result. You're just like, man, this is going to help a lot of people. This is going to solve a lot of problems or the things that I'm trying to solve for that I've had issues with. I'm really passionate about this idea. And so you go. But you should always be thinking about, well, where is it going to end? Because your kids, if you have any, may not want to take on the business, which we've seen a lot of families do. Or they may not have the ability to take it on. Maybe you're a little older in creating the thing that you're doing. And so, and you have some really young kids. It's like, are you going to wait till you're 80 to when they get to their 18-year-old or 20s or whatever to take on the business? Maybe not. And so you just want to think about all those components. You also may not be a type of founder who wants to continue on with the business. Like you like to develop the thing and then someone else takes it to that next level. And so it's just a lot of questions that you need to ask yourself as to what is it your own personal goal that you want to accomplish with the business product and service that you want to create. So I think first founders have to come from that, and then they'll kind of know what the next step is. After that, then it's like, well, if you're year one and you're thinking about, I'm trying to exit next year, that is a very lofty goal initiative. Normally exits are probably going to happen anywhere from 3 to 5, maybe 10 years, or longer, depending on the type of business that you have, where revenues are, and how you've set up your business to be at an exit point. So you guys talked about how do you venture ready? Venture ready is thinking about exits for sure, but most of the time it's venture scalable in terms of how do you get the next venture firm to help you raise the round that you need to get to be a growth stage business. For us, exit is not necessarily just venture. Who else, who of your competitors, who in your industry buys businesses like yours? What companies have you seen that are similar in your sector that have done really well in this space and that have had an exit opportunity, have been sold or purchased or of some type, maybe had an IPO? That's where, we want you to like fully think about those things, and then you'll have a better understanding of what the time frame is for that exit based off of what you're seeing and companies in your space in the market. So hopefully that gives you a little help there, Kimberly.
Rachel, I appreciate the way in which you have a more expansive look and perspective as it relates to exits. I'm wondering, outside of those Black and Brown founders who may be in technology, how many Black and Brown founders are really thinking about exits? Per, particularly given that so much of the larger kind of mythology of the country is that that this country is built on the backbone of small businesses. I start a business, a restaurant, maybe some food and beverage and that type of thing. They don't really think about exits in terms of what I've heard people talk about. So I'm just curious, in terms of the people who come to BFM, to what extent are Black and Brown founders really thinking about exits that may not be in the kind of technology side of the entrepreneurial journey?
That's a great question, Stephen, because unfortunately, VC has been romanticized, and there's a great space for venture capital. It is a needed component as part of the capital stack, but it's not the only thing, and it's not the only way to go after capital and raise capital. Albeit that there are other capital resources, but sometimes those also cannot be attainable. Debt, for instance. Or there might be resources out there that the government, federal government, or even municipal is offering, but people just aren't aware of those options. And so I think what I always say for us is that knowledge is a huge part of this process too, because you don't know what you don't know. And when you see people out there that look like you or don't look like you, and mostly don't, are getting all these dollars from venture capitalists, you're like, man, like, how do I get this money? How do I go after this bag too? And then you get disheartened because you're like, I'm not able to access this capital. And why is it that I'm not able to get further along in these conversations with these folks? And raising money is a challenge. Our fund is raising too, and we definitely find it a challenging market right now to get access to allocators out there as well. And so it's really important from a founder perspective when they're thinking about exits, especially Brown and Black founders, whether they're small businesses or they're looking for venture, if they're a SaaS business or innovative company that is non-tech but has the ability to scale. Again, it just goes back to thinking through in the beginning what that looks like. And so not just talking about the venture type of business, because a lot of times it's just SaaS tech, but let's talk about like you had mentioned, I'm a restaurant owner and I'm building a company. I'm building a great, firm business. We've got great people coming in all the time. Is that type of business going to get venture dollars? Most likely not, just because venture dollars are looking for something that is going to scale. Debt would probably be a better option, but sometimes debt can have not the best terms. So what community development foundations and institutions could do, like CDFIs, those would probably be a better suite of debt products that small businesses can use. But even then, that could potentially be far and few in between. And so it's really important for small businesses to really think through in the very beginning, if they can, what does it look like to get to certain revenue numbers? Like, let me really fully think through like my expenses. What can I take on? What other partners can I bring in? Maybe it's friends and family, angels that I can talk to build a thing. Maybe I start something really small. I'm a food truck before I'm a big, box business and get a lease that I can't afford right now. Or, I have lofty dreams of, man, I'm gonna put down 100K for this lease. I'm gonna get all these customers, but you maybe still haven't fully thought through what if that does not work out in the way that you're thinking. So I love to tell founders, whether they are looking for venture or they're, small businesses, it's okay to start with something small and grow that, grow the revenue, see the traction, see that people are trying to come after and go after your business. Before you start putting too much money or maxing out credit cards and all the things to do the business. I personally see that. My dad has done, things like that. I've done that when I've tried to start up businesses, and I've learned over the years that starting small, really trying to make that initial impact with the concept is really key first, and seeing whether the market wants it or not. And if the market wants it, it'll grow and develop, and then you'll see a lot of opportunity from there. But you gotta really do a lot of proactive diligence and work on where the opportunities lie first with your business, and hopefully you're thinking about what that looks like from a exit potential, which I think more and more brown and black businesses need to do more of.
That's good. Thank you. We're going to now shift it to our program where we focus on resource roundups. And here we typically explore various resources and practical tools and tips that will equip and support underrepresented entrepreneurs to build their business. So, with that, Rachel, let me ask you, what existing resources or support systems do you see as particularly valuable for Black and innovative founders in the early stages of launching their businesses?
There's so many,
Give
but a
us your
few
top three.
that I'd like to share. So right now, the federal government is releasing a lot of dollars to support brown and black businesses, or as they may call them, SEDI, which is socially economic diverse individually owned companies, the new BIPOC word. And so there are dollars through your states that have received money from the federal government to directly fund businesses, either through CDFIs or either through venture capital firms like ours, or just the states directly themselves. And there's tens of millions, in some cases, hundreds of millions that are going to be deployed for these companies. And this is called the State Small Business Credit Initiative, so SSBCI. And those dollars are across the country. I think almost every state has gotten these dollars, and they're going to be deployed into small businesses. Another organization or federal program is the SBIR. And this really is centered around innovation that you might be building, research as well. And so you can find a lot of information by just Googling SBIR and how to go after those particular programs. And then I know that there are a lot of companies just looking to see, like, how do I, maybe I don't want to go after venture, but I want to figure out like how I can get access to some additional debt options as well. So there are some really great organizations like the African American Association of CDFIs, where they have member CDFI groups who are looking to support and fund small businesses as well. And so I would implore people to go to your state, like Secretary of State, go to Just Google like CDFIs within whatever your city or your state is, and you can find these organizations where they're providing technical assistance. They're also providing resources for debt instruments, and in some cases, non-dilutive, meaning it's money that you can have with no obligation, no interest to pay, no equity to give up, as well too. And so I would be encouraging a lot of small businesses and founders to go after those dollars, especially because there's so much coming down the pipeline. Oh, and sorry, I have to say this one too. The EPA has a lot of money through their greenhouse gas funding initiatives. Like it's billions of dollars that they are trying to deploy into companies that have carbon reduction programs or doing something that's environmentally sustainable. And these dollars can be garnered through groups like the CDVCA, the EPA, if you go to their website, or hit me up on LinkedIn, happy to share that information as well. But there are billions of dollars specifically for companies that are looking to do projects around environmental sustainability, where that is solar panel things or agricultural things, things that are helping with electric vehicles, like you name it, all project-based opportunities. And you can get anywhere from like 500,000 to, $5 million or so, and even more. So I would definitely encourage, if you're doing anything around that space, to definitely look up the GHG funding opportunities too.
Wow, that's great.
Those are some really great resources. So I hope you listeners are taking some notes. So Rachel, there are tons of terms and there's language in the investor world. I mean, angel investors, VCs, seed, series, CDFI, ETA. There are so many, there's so much stuff. What resources are available to help educate founders and aspiring entrepreneurs around the language and to know what's being talked about and what they need to be prepared to address in certain conversations? Because I ask this question too because there are a lot of entrepreneurs who don't know what any of this means, or there's a blanket assumption of what it might mean, which is not truly what it means. So are there resources that you can send people to that can help better prepare them?
Yes. So one book that is really helpful that was created by Brad Feld, it's called Venture Deals. So that book is a really great initial resource to just learn about all things VC, from the vernacular, the acronyms, all the things. And it helps to just give you insight of the vantage point of the venture capitalist, these funding tools, the capital stack that is out there. So that is definitely one that I like to use. Another one that is really good is going to Medium, which is, has a ton of just different resources and works around different subject matter. But if you type in Venture 101, they have a ton of things that break down, I would say, like definitions, have like glossaries all over these particular terms as well too, which I find to be really helpful if you're like first trying to just get to understand like what is all this stuff and what does it all this mean and how do I make sure I have an intelligent conversation with someone. Those are the first two that I would definitely recommend. And then our fund, we have sister foundations, and one of them is called Emerge, and that is all around helping small businesses to understand some of these different tools and things to help their business grow, providing them with non-dilutive dollars to support what they need to get access to marketing, legal, accounting resources as well. And we've been able to help tons of business across the country through that foundational work so that people can get better acquainted to what capital stack and vehicles that are out there to support their businesses.
Yeah, that's great. I hope that our listeners are realizing they don't have to fake it until they make it. They can actually pick up a book and some resources to actually, to brush up and to learn these terminologies, because it can be, it can be intimidating. So I think these are good resources. Here's one last one, which is, what should entrepreneurs who are VC ready look for in a potential investor? Or maybe what's the one piece of advice that you would give them?
That is a great question, because I am a true believer in that it's a two-way street when it comes to this investment process. Like, we're vetting you, but you should also be vetting us as well too, because we're going to be around and with you for a really long time. So you want to make sure you have the right type of partners as part of your cap table or your list of investors who are going to be along for your journey. So I would say, when you're looking for an investor, one, are they mission aligned is key. I'm a faith-driven person. I know Kimberly and I talked about this extensively when we talked and met. And so for me, if you are not aligned with doing good, if you're not aligned with, if you're only about like, how can I go after getting this money, not about how you can support the community, do things that are going to help uplift or change things for the better, then off the rip, that probably isn't the right type of partner that you need to have. At least for me, if I'm a founder, and as a VC, when I look at founders, that's really important to me. So I would say, if anything, make sure that you end up with the right people who very much understand like what you're about, that they're aligned with your mission, they understand your passion, and they truly believe that you can do what you are gonna do, and not just looking for you to be a check. Like, we all want to make sure we get paid, but if they're always coming from like, hey, when are you going to give me my money? When is this going to happen? Then it's probably not really an aligned investor. It's just someone who is really trying to, take advantage of the hard work and the sweat equity that you put into your business.
That's good. So if you are tuning in and you want to take your business to the next level, to prepare what you're up to for raising funds and capital, and you want a community, you can go to dogoodx.org and discover resources for your journey. Here you can have practical tools and tips, a supportive LinkedIn community where we will also list out what is shared by Rachel and our other guests on this podcast for you to check out. So we hope to see you there. We hope that you join us in that way. And lastly, we are going to shift to our segment Off the Cuff. And so we are going to ask Rachel you a series of questions, and you can just say what comes up first off the top of your head. None of these are trick questions.
All right, I'm game.
So I'll get us started. What do you do to navigate roadblocks and build your confidence?
That is a constant struggle, I would say, to be honest. So, I tend to be a very humble person and don't like to humble brag. So to build confidence, I think a lot of it starts with self-reflection and talking to myself, talking to God and saying like, I know I'm good at these things. I know that you have a purpose for me. I need to be more comfortable in the gifts that you've given me and less worried about what other people think of me. And so I think self-reflection is really important. Having that time to do that, making time to do that and have those conversations help me to build the confidence that I need to continue to work on.
All right. So then what is one go-to practice ritual that you use to slow down, to center yourself, to ground and connect with yourself?
For me, that's the spa. So
Okay.
I love going to a place that is made for that, to just be able to just chill out, relax, get a facial, take advantage of like the saunas, the hammam, just being a place of zen. So spas really help with that. Korean spas, especially, because they're not insanely expensive. But they just have all of these spaces just for lounging and relaxing, and to be able to level set your mind. So love doing spas.
What is one of the most inspiring books you have read or movies you have watched?
One of my favorite books that I continue to keep going back to is The Alchemist. I forget the name of the author. Escapes my mind. You said it, Stephen? Yes, exactly. I find myself always going back to that book. There are just so many really great stories about finding purpose or losing your way, or reflecting on, one's journey, and making sure that things are purposeful, like finding one's gifts, knowing what those gifts are, who's important. So a lot of times I always find myself going back and rereading that story, and the journey of the protagonist in The Alchemist, and the lessons learned. He's learning from wisdom. It's really always been a really great book that helps me just to level set on where I am at in my journey, and where I want to be, and what I should be reflecting on as well too. So hopefully others can find some resources in there too.
How much of your success do you attribute to your faith or your own grit, will, or your hustle?
That's a great question. I would say I attribute all of my success and all the things, glory to God, just because, you know, there are definitely times where I'm like, man, how did that even happen? That it just flew out of my mouth, my brain, like, and I might have been like so nervous to even think about what to say or what to do. And I know that had to come from God. And so, like, all these gifts that I have of meeting great people like Kimberly and yourself, Stephen, to being able to be in spaces that I didn't know I would be, and give me the courage to just go out and just do a thing, and to connect to people. People are always just like, man, Rachel, you just know, everybody. And so it really is more so because I get this courage, I get this fulfillment, just saying that you can, and it will happen, and persevere. And I know that for me is really always coming from my faith.
Complete this sentence. Because of my entrepreneurial endeavors, communities will be or are more able to blank.
Because of my entrepreneurial endeavors, communities will be or are able to thrive. Thrive with knowledge, thrive with resources, be better where, tomorrow than they were yesterday.
Thank you so much, Rachel, for showing up, for your presence, for your knowledge, and bringing your experiences to this conversation. We are grateful to have had you on our podcast today.
Definitely grateful to you and your work and the ways in which you are blessing others in remarkable and powerful ways because of your gifts.
Oh, I'm so grateful. Thank you guys for having me here. Like I said, Abe, sorry for all the noise. And I'm just grateful to have the opportunity, and hopefully this helps people. Feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm always willing and here to help people in any way that I can. So thank you guys for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Do Good X podcast. To continue the conversation or access our resources, visit www.dogoodx.org. Join us again for conversations that will nourish your soul, ignite your dreams, and empower you to build an impactful business, one intentional step at a time. Until then, keep striving, thriving, and doing good.